Welcome to Food Nation's first global food talk, steering the green transition in farming and food, innovative technology as a driver. The aim with our new series of Global Food Talk is to address how the world ensures food for everyone in a sustainable way. My name is Lise Valbom and I'm the CEO of the public-private partnership Food Nation. And this is where we are welcoming everyone from the whole world and showcasing the agriculture and food sector here in our visitor center in Copenhagen. And I'm very happy to welcome all of you. I would like to start by welcoming all of you joining us from around the world. And also the good people joining us here today in our studio. A special warm welcome to His Royal Highness Crown Prince Frederik of Denmark, Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, Rasmus, and Your Excellency, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to Denmark, Park. So, welcome everyone. It is incredible and important that we keep in contact, that we meet up, even though we cannot yet all meet up in real life. We believe that keeping in contact and sharing experiences and collaborate is key to succeed with the green transition. The need for a green recovery and kickstart with focus on sustainable development and after COVID-19 is more important than ever. This is also why we are very pleased that today's Global Food Talk is also an official side event to the P4G Seoul Summit taking place this week in South Korea. P4G stands for Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goals 2030. So let's talk and let today's Global Food Talk inspire and initiate actions and next steps towards a green transition and the global food system and bring forward inspiration to the work around the important United Nations Food System Summit September this year. This is what we're going to do today. And let me just introduce you to today's guests. Here at Food Nation, they will all motivate you and share their ideas and experiences to a green transition. So our speakers here today are His Royal Highness Crown Prince Frederik of Denmark and patron of Food Nation. Minister of Food, Fisheries and Agriculture, Rasmus, His Excellency Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to Denmark, Park, followed by a fireside chat with first a round with CEO of the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, Mrs. Anne Lavets-Arnung, and International Director and COO in the Confederation of Danish Industry, Mr. Thomas Bustrup. The next fireside chat will be with CEO in Danish Crown, Jais Valeur, and CEO in Arla Foods, Peter Tubo. So these are our very powerful guests, and they will all share deep insight into the global food system and with high ambitions to creating change for a more sustainable future. Therefore, they are here today because the steps we take today will impact our future. And I know this because this morning I received a letter from the future. And I would like to share this letter with you now.
To my lovely children and grandchildren, I'm sitting here in my vertical in-house farm in my apartment here in central Copenhagen. I have just harvested today's greens for our dinner tonight. I can't believe that it is May 2050. When I look back, I'm so grateful for the global actions the world started to take in 2021 when I was just a young woman. At that time, the world's 7.5 billion people consumed more than 1.6 times what the Earth could supply sustainably, and we knew that we would need to produce 70% more food to feed an estimated 10 billion people by 2050. It seems scary, and things were a little dark in 2021. With these numbers in mind, we were also hit by a global pandemic. Fortunately, this period taught us the important lesson that when we focus our efforts and collaborate, we can make huge progress in a very short time. So things started to change. When we reached the ambitious UN Sustainable Development Goals in 2030, the world was buzzing with excitement, hope and celebration. I want you to know that we only managed this due to an enormous commitment and collaboration across borders from around the world. I can understand this can be hard for you to imagine. But when I was young, we did not know how or if we could produce safe food for all and at the same time take care of the planetary boundaries. What has happened is not just a scaling of the food system. No. I'm so keen on telling you just a few of the changes that made it possible to increase yield while decreasing the planetary impact. Farmers and food producers revolutionized their industries by implementing advanced farming operations such as digitalized barn system, blockchain, the Internet of Things, and smart farming technology. Technologies which for you today is normal. But these initiatives have increased food security globally and lowered the CO2 emissions from agriculture and food industries. So the planet in which I see my grey hair, laugh lines and happy grandchildren today is the same planet in which we doubted its sustainable future just decades ago. The path to the sustainable world we have today was no walk in the park. So I want you to know, by standing together, sharing ideas and experiences, history has taught us that we can overcome even the biggest challenges. For me, it has been so wonderful to experience the green transition and to see the many glimmers of hope. Now the new world is no longer on her way. She's no longer a distant whisper in our ears. No, she's here, loud and proud as can be. The future has never looked brighter. With love, your Granny.
So this letter inspires me, and hopefully all of you. And the letter set the scene for today's talk about which actions are needed to take us to the future in 2050. This is what we have just had described and succeeded with the green transition. We all need to take the necessary actions, and here technology and collaboration are important tools. With these words, I would like to give the floor to His Royal Highness, Crown Prince Frederik of Denmark and patron of Food Nation, for an opening speech at our first Global Food Talk. Your Royal Highness, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure it is for me to officially open the Food Nation's first Global Food Talk. Food Nation is a Danish public-private partnership, and as a patron of this important partnership, I've been able to follow the last and the fast development within the global food system closely over recent years. On my many foreign visits, I've seen ambitious farmers and food companies around the world striving to streamline their production by investing in technologies that transform their products and processes into a sustainable direction. And let me highlight with an example. 4 years ago, I visited a Japanese company who had just adopted a Danish egg cracking machine in their plant. On top of being able to crack 140,000 eggs per hour, the machine had a unique way of separating the albumin and the yolk, keeping the discards from production at a very minimum. This is an excellent example of how technology can increase efficiency while reducing food loss. And actually, in a nutshell, I can carry on. it doesn't always take rocket science to break an egg. The pandemic has changed the world by causing major disruptions to our societies, including our food systems. The pandemic has shown us quite clearly that a global crisis transcends all geographical and national boundaries. We are all in this together, and we need to find common solutions. The goal of our global food talk today is to inspire all stakeholders, to accelerate the actions necessary for a speedy green transition using innovative technology. Scaling the current food system is simply not an option. Cross-disciplinary collaboration and innovative technology is crucial in supporting the transition towards sustainable agriculture and food production. While pursuing the UN 2030 agenda, we need more effective and responsible production practices. The good news is we are moving in the right direction. This weekend, the P4G Summit aims at becoming the world's leading forum for developing concrete public-private partnership at scale to deliver on the SDGs and the Paris Climate Agreement. Furthermore, the power of innovation has never been greater. The hunt for new, smarter ways to support a sustainable development is a key driver of technological advancement. I mentioned the egg machine before, and there are several other innovative technologies available around the world, which in each their own way support the important next steps actually, towards green transition. As an example, biosolutions that enables farmers to produce more efficiently while reducing the amount of input resources. In the case of Denmark, the technology development has been fostered through the Danish cooperative movement, which started in the late 19th century. Farmers united their knowledge and financial resources to build advanced factories and use skilled production methods that could produce uniform, high-quality products faster and more efficiently by using different technology. That was then, but this is still applicable in our modern day. Innovative technologies today play a crucial role in increasing yield while decoupling environmental degradation. Now more than ever, new technology has the potential to take the green transition of our food system a step further, but we need to take collaborative action. Together, we can build a food system that feeds the entire population while operating within planetary boundaries. I'm obviously confident, as you can hear, that we will succeed in this together. And one key word again is collaboration. Food Nations Global Food Talks is a good starting point to share knowledge, experiences, and take actions across borders. Talk is a great starting point, but cannot stand alone. In that spirit, I leave you today with a little Elvis Presley message. In one of his songs, he said in the refrain, a little less conversation, a little more action. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. It was a great pleasure to have you with us today. Great pleasure to have you as our patron. So thank you very much for these inspiring words. Thank you.
Got it.
And I'm quite sure, and these words are well noted, His Royal Highness words about a little less conversation and a little more actions are well noted. And I'm quite sure our next speaker agree on this, because actions are needed when we look at the challenges ahead of us. I would like now to welcome the Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, Mr. Rasmus, who will give us his view on the importance of acting. Welcome to the stage, Minister Rasmus.
Your Royal Highness, Mr. Ambassador, thank you for participating today and bringing this very important agenda into focus. I am so pleased to be here with you today at Food Nation's first Global Food Talk on the role of innovative technology for the green transition. Also, thank you to the business representatives who will be inspiring us in today's session. You have a very important role to play if we are to achieve a green transition of our food systems. Thank you for your support. The theme of this global food talk could not be more relevant nor more urgently needed. The climate crisis is not called off. In order to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals and move towards a green transition, we need to accelerate concrete actions. A wide range of actions, here technology plays an important role. The development and demonstration of new technologies takes time, but during the last year we have learned to be agile, to adapt to change, and to modify our behavior in response to the pandemic. We have demonstrated that when we really need to, we can come together across borders and public-private sectors dividers and show results. The world have developed not just one, but a number of vaccines in less than a year. Around the world, companies have already developed technologies that can support green transition. The global agri-food sector plays a vital role in reaching the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Our food systems affect many goals. Directly, they affect the global goals on hunger, environment, climate change, water and consumption. But also indirectly, the goals affect our economy and employment, gender equality, and the way we organize our societies. The development of innovative technologies to preserve scarce resources while producing more food for a growing world population is critical if we are to move forward. There are so many promising areas to explore. Digital technology and robots for predictive maintenance of smart food process, GPS and drone technology for crop management, feed additives for cattle to reduce emission, hydroponic technology for indoor farms, blockchain technology for traceability. All good examples of actions and solutions we need to speed up. In Denmark, we have set ambitious goals to the transition to a greener and more sustainable future. We have decided to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 70% in 2030. And we have made it into law. In addition, the agri-food sector have set a target to be carbon neutral by 2050. This is very ambitious indeed. In the Danish agri-food sector, I see great examples of technological ingenuity. Solutions that reduce water and energy consumptions, cut carbon emission, and maximize utilization of raw materials. In order to reduce the use of fossil fuels, food and agricultural waste have become the feedstock for biogas production. The Danish agri-food sector owe much of its strength to its long tradition for innovation. The sector is well tuned for finding new ways to meet the growing global demands and emerging needs. There are no easy solutions, no easy fix, and the journey will take time. But we have set the course and the first steps have been taken. Part of the story of the reduction target is that they push us. We are being held accountable, and the targets push us to find new ways and new solutions. And we believe that the journey will give us a competitive edge in the future. The business case is there, and the world will require more sustainable products and solutions in the future. So we need to act. We need to act together, and there is no argument in favor of lacking or postponing. The Global Food Talk is a great platform for taking new actions and so is the P4G summit taking place these days, hosted by the Korean government. These events bring the right stakeholders together, and only together we can make the green transition happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for this inspirational speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
And not only thank you for the speech, but also thank you very much for taking steps in the right direction. Greenhouse gas emissions in Denmark, reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Denmark by 70% by 2030, and being carbon neutral by the private sector by 2050. As the minister said, it's quite ambitious goals. So you really set the framework for accelerating actions. Thank you for doing this. And as mentioned in the beginning, we are very proud that this Global Food Talk is an official side event to the P4G Seoul Summit taking place this week. And I know that we have some very special friends also joining us today from Korea at the ambassador's residence in Korea. So thank you very much for being with us. And thank you for joining, all of you. I hope you have a good time joining this session. We are very happy to have you all with us today. The P4G Summit focuses on establishing partnerships and collaborations that can accelerate the green transition, and just that is also what our next guest will highlight. His Excellence, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to Denmark, Park, is here to talk about P4G and how it can be a stepstone to accelerate sustainable food production. The floor is yours, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you for your kind introduction. Your Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, and Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, and distinguished guests. It is a great honor and pleasure for me to deliver my remarks today before you. I'm so pleased to visit again this center on today's meaningful occasion. Nowadays, our humanity is witnessing some sea changes. The unprecedented COVID-19 has changed many things. Climate change is calling for more faster and global action fueled by the pandemic. The global issue, such as climate change and the pandemic, require more closer international cooperation and collaboration than ever. Let me now remind you of P4G as one of the solutions to climate change and sustainable growth. P4G, which is launched in 2017 by the initiative of Danish government, is a global forum to accelerate this response to climate change and the implementation of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. P4G stands out among other global forums in many respects. Above all, it is inclusive as it focuses on public-private partnership for sustainable growth. Also, it bridges government assistance and investment, and also developed and underdeveloped countries as well. More importantly, it tackles 5 sectors of the 17 United Nations SDGs, including food and agriculture. Distinguished guests, this weekend, Korea will host 2021 P4G Seoul Summit with the theme Inclusive Green Recovery Toward Carbon Neutrality. Ahead of the summit, Green Future Week is now going on, encompassing 10 Green Future sessions. Today's food talk is a really global, significant forum as a side event of Seoul P4G Summit. I really appreciate it. The upcoming Seoul Summit is the first ever multilateral one on the environment to be hosted by the Korean government. This summit will be a momentum to raise the public awareness of environment-related issues and to guide them toward climate action. Furthermore, Seoul Summit carries extra weight as it will take place at a very important time in terms of global society's commitment to climate change. As you know, 2021 is the first year for the international society to take an action to implement of the Paris Agreement. This summit will also serve a stepping stone to the COP26 to be held in Glasgow, UK in November this year. The Korean government aims at turning this summit into an opportunity for all stakeholders to strengthen their solidarity and take action rigorously to build back better and greener. To that end, it is planning to adopt Seoul Declaration at this summit, which includes the vision to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and the importance of the green transition. As the second host of P4G and a responsible member of a global society, Korean government is now preparing for concrete action to respond to the expectation of the international community. It has already declared carbon neutrality by 2050 and suspending financing overseas coal power plant. It will also announce the higher ambition of NDC, nationally determined contribution, in due time. Ladies and gentlemen, global food security is another big challenge of our time. It is directly affected by climate change, doubled by the ever-increasing global population. United States Department of Agriculture scientist Jerry Hatfield says the single biggest threat of climate change is the collapse of a food system. More worse, in 2050, global population is projected to reach 9.8 billion, with 68% of the Earth living in urban city center. United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change strongly warned that unless we can cope with climate change by mid-century, then the world may reach a threshold of global warming beyond which our agricultural products can no longer support large human civilization. As pointed out above, our humanity is facing double challenges of securing sustainable and resilient food system while combating climate change. To solve these problems, our common resolve and global partnership, and more importantly, continuous innovation are indispensable. There is no exception to the bilateral cooperation between Korea and Denmark. Denmark is one of the innovative countries in the world, and Danish agriculture and cooperative has been a role model to many countries, including Korea. Danish food and agricultural sector is a big contributor to its economy and export. On the other hand, Korea depends on heavily overseas market for food, with only 45% of self-sufficiency. As part of green transition and securing of food security in Korea, now many new projects and systems are underway. Smart farming with ICT, urban vertical farming, carbon labeling system, food circular system, and regenerating of unutilized infrastructure into smart farming, etc. As a strategic partner and Green Growth Alliance, our two countries will further develop substantial cooperation in the food and agriculture sector, not to mention green transition, harnessing our big potential. Thank you so much for your attention. Mange tak.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you. Thank you for this inspiring speech and for highlighting the important platform P4G calling to specific public-private partnerships to deliver on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. I hope all of you out there, all of you are inspired to follow these recommendations for collaboration from the Ambassador. So thank you once again for being with us today. And now I'm really pleased to have this conversation. We are going to have a slightly change of setting here in the studio. Our next two inspiring guests will be sharing their views on what it takes to succeed with a green transition from a private sector perspective. What is special with our next two guests is that they are both representing important industry organizations here in Denmark with a huge international outreach. And let me present the next two speakers. And with us today we have CEO from the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, Mrs. Anne Lavezzano. Please join us over here. Anne representing the farming and food industry, including companies, trade and farmers associations. And also with us we have International Director and COO from the Confederation of Danish Industry, Mr. Thomas Bustrup. Welcome.
Thank you.
The Confederation of Danish Industry is Denmark's largest business organization covering manufacturing as well as service industries across sectors such as transport, energy, IT, health, food, trade, and professional services. So welcome to both of you. And now I will join you over here. A slight change of scene. Nice to have you here. So, Anne, we will go straight forward. Agriculture and food production has a big impact. We've been talking about this already. They have a big impact on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So, in short, what would be your main message to succeed in this global green transition?
It's probably difficult to keep it short, but I strongly believe that the agriculture and food cluster holds many of the keys to the solutions to all the challenges that we are facing throughout the world. I believe that this food and agriculture cluster can be able to produce even more food for more people in a more sustainable and climate-friendly way. So this sector is one of the solutions to all our challenges. In Danish Agriculture and Food Council, which I represent, we have launched a vision, a climate vision for being climate neutral at the latest in 2050. It will be hard work, and I think many of the farmers and the food producers, they feel that it's quite a heavy burden on their shoulders, but they're working very hard every day to get there. And at the same time, we all have to be aware that we are also dealing with a sector that is working with biological issues. So it's not like an electric car we are working with here. Based on the experiences we have experienced so far, to keep it short, we will be facing, I think, four important elements to succeed globally with this transmission. And first, it's important that we work closely together in the whole value chain. And by that I mean both from the farmer but also to the consumer. So the farmers should work with in a sustainable way, produce food in a sustainable way, but the consumer also has a responsibility to minimize food waste. And secondly, we need partnerships. It's important to join forces both locally here in Denmark, but also globally. And then thirdly, we should invest much more in research, in innovation. I don't think that everything can be solved within technology, but we sure need to invest more in innovation and R&D for sure. And then fourth, finally, information, awareness, and also best practices. And speaking of best practices, I think that's one of the key words that what we are doing here in Denmark. Hopefully, someone out there can be inspired, and also what other countries are doing. I hope we can be inspired as well. So we all join forces in doing our best within the best practices. So working together, dealing with all the challenges and doing it in a common way.
Thank you very much, Anne, for highlighting the solution part of the agriculture and food sector and these four very important elements. And the last one, you'll get back to it, that's for sure. But the last one, sharing the best practices, I think certainly we will get back to that.
Yeah.
So for now, thank you very much. Thomas, the Confederation of Danish Industry is representing more than 18,000 companies here in Denmark. Of course, due to that, play an important role in the green transition, both the companies and your organization yourself. So, with this solid foundation and your international outlook, how do you motivate companies and private sector in general to accelerate this sustainable development?
They do it pretty good themselves, I would say, and they are definitely motivated by the fact that even though 18,000 companies sound like much, I mean, we are a small but very open economy in Denmark, and the entire economy, the welfare state, but also the companies are dependent on being successful outside of our borders. And they've been that to a very high extent, and a significant part of them have actually been successful abroad based on knowledge, solutions, know-how, products that are related somehow to the green transition or sustainability in general. So it's a success factor in itself for many of these companies. Me too, like Anne, and the ambassador also mentioned the importance of partnerships. Again, coming from a small open economy, it's extremely important. And we as an organization, of course with our members, have also tried to constantly engage in partnerships with the public, with government. Recently we formed our own ambition that Denmark should decrease the CO2 emissions by 70% by 2030. And that was a pledge, you could say, coming from the business community in itself. So I also think that's important. So that's what we try to do. Then we try to help them individually. How can not only sustainability and the sustainable development goals, how can they be a real part of their future business and not only something you mention on your website?
But I also know that both of your organizations and of course your members, you are working very closely on lifting out that know-how that you are mentioning, Thomas, and the best cases that you are highlighting, Anne, to get them out and sharing these ideas. And of course that's important. Otherwise we'll never get there together. No.
Exactly. We need to. Yeah.
But let's zoom in a little bit closer to the theme of today's Global Food Talk about technology and innovative solution, as you also highlighted, Anne. So you mentioned these four areas, but could you get just a little bit closer on how can innovative technologies and solutions be fostered to this accelerate the green transition? I mean, please share some of the specific examples. I know you have several in the Danish agriculture and food sector that can contribute and be these best cases that you really want to share.
First of all, Danish farmers and the food producers, food industry has been on this agenda for many decades. It didn't just start yesterday or 2 years ago. We have been working on this agenda for decades, and in that time, the agriculture and food cluster has been able to produce more food and do it with less input when it comes to the use of pesticides or the use of water, the use of energy, less use of nitrogen, and so on and so on. And Danish farmers and the food producers, when you for example, take the farmers, where we have been looking in the stable, how to feed the cows or the pigs more sustainably. We have been looking at how to handle all the manure, both in the stables, but also outside the stables, how to cultivate the fields, new use of arable land, and also new conservation methods. So working closely together in the value chain is of high value in the case of being able to go forward. More food with less input, more sustainable food. So every part of the value chain is important to move forward.
And also the fact that you say that the sector has been working with this for decades underline the fact that you really have something to share with the rest of the world. So you're not standing on bare ground, you are really already there.
Yes.
So able to share some of these really good examples.
Yes, and also the way we work together.
Yes.
I think it's kind of special working from farmer to the food industry, but also working with universities. We have the knowledge center, so-called knowledge center, the knowledge center Silkes, which is a part of my organization. Working with innovation closely with the industry, the farmers, universities, and whenever they find some new solutions, it's very quickly delivered to the farmers to implement. So this collaboration in the chain is extremely important.
And also a special Danish thing that we really can cherish,
Yes.
the fact that we are able to work together from the public and private and university.
That's what we hear from a lot of from outside, that this working together in the public-private partnership is quite unique to be able to move forward.
So this is one of the things that we can share as
Yes.
well. Yeah. Thomas, from your perspective, how can you, if you go just a little bit closer on the innovative technologies and solutions, can you share a few ideas on what does the industry, what are the actions taken by the industry?
In many ways, the industry in Denmark is very digital and in front when it comes to digital solutions and innovation. So this is also one, I think, important area where Danish companies, and not only the big established companies, but also new startups and innovators, that to use all kind of digital solution, whether it's in the production process or whether it is to cut waste or new solutions to cut down on pesticides and things like that, is a stronghold in Denmark. And food waste is it's a global issue. It's a global challenge. I think in Denmark we've been quite successful in getting it down, but on a global scale, there's a huge potential in that. Also, when it comes to the CO2 emissions actually being reduced by reducing food waste.
As far as I know, it resembles the third biggest CO2 emitter. If it was a country, the global food loss and waste amount is equal to the third largest.
Just behind the US and China.
Yeah, that's right. But as you say, Thomas, data and the digital solutions are key. And I guess that the collaboration across the value chain to get everything digitalized and sharing data is actually a good combination of what you are sharing.
Yes.
And just to finalize, I would like you to share good advice to other private sector business leaders who wants to take action in the green transition. So maybe, Thomas, what would be your best advice?
To be brave
Yes.
and courageous, both as individual consumers and individual people, but also as companies and as business communities, and of course also as governments. It's important, I think, that some of the players that are very far in terms of technology, in terms of digital solutions, but also in terms of sustainability and doing your business right in all countries. It's very important that these companies, they continue to be active all over. There could be a slight tendency of, if you act in a country where you get into some kind of problem, even though you have done the utmost you can for doing everything right, that you are put on front of the newspaper. And it's good that we have the transparency, but of course we don't want to risk some of the global players, that they sort of tend to be only on their own home territory or in the Western world, because they have full, you could say, due diligence in these countries. I think that's actually an important part to remember if we're going to reach the Sustainable Development Goals in just 10 years, 9 years.
That's a really good advice, Thomas. So be brave and don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Anne, I would like to ask you the same question. So what would be the best advice from your side?
I mentioned some of it in my start or in my beginning. Look for best practices, collaboration, and you said be brave. I would say be curious as well. And of course, I talked a lot about our own sector, how good we have been to collaborate. But it's, I think, just as Thomas said, it's very important to look for other sectors as well. Look for other possibilities. Get inspired by other sectors as well. Be open-minded.
That's a really good finalizing word here in this Global Food Talk. Be curious and open-minded. Thank you very much, both of you, for being with us today. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So now we are honored to welcome two new guests. And thank you very much, first of all, to Thomas and Anne. And the two new guests, I guess we can call them real action takers. They have taken important steps in their companies towards a sustainable food production. Today they will share some of their concrete actions, tools, and what they look into in the coming years in order to move towards a sustainable food system. And with me today we have Mr. Jais Valeur, CEO in Danish Crown, a cooperative and one of the world's largest exporters and one of Europe's largest producers of pork. The Danish Crown Group is also the largest meat processing company in Europe. And Mr. Peter Tuborg, CEO at Arla Foods, also a cooperative and the largest producer of dairy products in Scandinavia. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
So I'm just really pleased that it is specific you two which are here today. And I have my opening question for you is for both of you. How can a dairy producer and a meat producing company contribute to a reduction of CO2 emission? And what specific actions have you been taking in your companies? How can your company support a change from farmers and in the whole value chain? And we could start with you, Jais.
I think it's first and foremost, it's important to recognize that we have a challenge. And I think this is the starting point for this discussion. Here in Denmark, we've had a fast electrification of society. We have a way where there's not so much industrial production anymore in Denmark, and that means that the agricultural complex, the agricultural sector is now between 25 and moving up towards 30% of the CO2 emissions for the country. So we have to take it seriously. This is a challenge for our industry. In Danish Crown, we've set an ambition that is we want to want to have a 50% reduction in CO2 by 2030, and when we come towards 2050, we'll be net zero in terms of CO2. So accepting the challenge and then setting out an ambitious target, I think this is the starting point, and then we got to talk about how do we then get into it, but recognizing the challenge.
And we'll get back to how in just a while. So, Peter, from your perspective, how can you contribute?
Well, exactly as Jais is saying, to me it starts very much with the UN SDGs, sustainability goals, which is sustainability defined on climate, which I guess we will talk about specifically, as Jais also did, but actually a much broader scope, being a value-driven or mindful about the values that actually really sits behind the UN SDGs, and understanding that it's about being a good citizen in the world. If you want to do business, then you have to be a good citizen in the world. And at the moment, and probably for the next many, many years, if not generations, it will be about climate, biodiversity, making sure that we live up to our part of the challenge. And we are working with it and have been doing that for quite a long time. We have been setting our 2050 carbon neutral goals, 2030 goals. We know exactly what to do. And have also, as the first company, I think, in our sector, developed a database on climate, on individual farmers, thousands of farmers, now honoring them through the milk price to participate, and they do, so that each farmer knows exactly where he or she is in terms of their footprint. And then we have advisory systems that will now, probably for many years, help the farmers on their journey. The good thing is that we know and they know what to do.
So no doubt that you recognize the challenge, and you have both for your companies been setting quite ambitious targets. And you've been doing it quite early in the process of discussing this important issue. So let's just get a little bit closer. You mentioned it already, Peter, and Jais, you touched upon it. What have you been doing exactly? I mean, as a cooperative, you kind of own the whole value chain from the farmers in the processing of the products and also further out in the value chain. You mentioned the data foundation, and I'm just a little bit curious about what has been the most important action as for now, from your perspective, Jais?
Yeah. I think it's key to recognize, as you mentioned, the value chain. We're not just talking about one factory or 50 factories. We're talking about the complete value chain. So when we look in the technical terms, these scope 1, 2, and 3, consumers and society, they expect that we take full responsibility for the value chain. They expect that a company like Danish Crown or an agricultural company, that we will give answers across the whole value chain. So I think recognizing that, and when looking into that, we found that 90%, when we talk pork or pig meat, that is about 90% of the CO2 emissions in this case, they actually sit on farm. So it is, cutting out the value chain and figuring out where is the big impact and how can you go about this. What we've done so far, and I think a key point in moving forward here, has been a certification of all our farmer suppliers in Denmark. And this has been voluntarily done, but I think has been actually quite a success so far. So getting a grip on this, is it 100% precise? I don't think it is yet, but it will become precise over the next few years. But we're already ballpark there. We know what each farmer is doing. We know his environmental impact. And if there's one thing I've learned over many years, farmers are entrepreneurs, they are competitive, they want to be best. So when you can start looking at farmers and you can look at your neighbor, then everybody gets better. And it provides us a mechanism for transferring knowledge across that value chain. So certifying farmers, taking the whole value chain perspective, I think has been key so far, and getting this certification process going.
So the burden mentioned by Anne just before, this is one of the ways that you are actually working with the farmers in order to take these important steps. Yeah.
I think it's super important that we work with farmers, not against farmers. We need to. This is a collaborative effort where we need to work together.
Okay. And Peter, is it the same approach from your side as a dairy producing company? And also, if you could take like the global perspective and the global value chain that you certainly are also working with?
Well, it is basically from a mindset point of view and a methodology point of view, and we are very close to each other, actually neighbors, not only 50 kilometers between our head offices, so of course we share. I think at the moment, and we have the same situation within dairy and the whole cow sector as such, both the meat and dairy part, where it's 80-90% of the carbon emission that sits in that first part of the scope 3 of the of the value chain. So of course a lot of our focus is on that. To me, it's very important that we get the data foundation in order, that you know what you're talking about, and we do that today. So as I said, each individual farmer, he or she knows exactly the carbon emission, where it comes from. There are 200 data points, very advanced, science-based, must be science-based. I think that's super important because otherwise you lose trustworthiness. Very complicated is it, but once you get through it and you get that data up and running, then you also get a different kind of conversation with the farmers, with your customers, because you're actually talking about data and you know what you can actually do. And it's very simple things actually, probably not towards 2050, but for the next several years, there are many things that the farmers can do. You can call them low-hanging fruit. They're difficult, but seen from the outside, I mean, they're accessible. And some of them even bring efficiencies on farm. Let me give you an example from Denmark. In 1960, there was 1.5 million dairy cows. Today we have 500,000. But these 500,000 are producing slightly more than the 1.5 many years ago, or several generations ago. And that comes from good farm management, breeding, genetics, good animal welfare. So there is, the trick is actually to get this good farm management on farm to work now also going forward in the whole climate journey. They have reduced. You can obviously sense that with a third of the cows producing slightly more than in the old days. So that is in itself a major reduction. Now comes more advanced systems, more advanced genetics, feeding systems, and we as a company must lean in and help them, not only with the knowledge but also creating R&D and value chain cooperation to make sure that we can take the next 10 years also.
And thank you very much for being this specific, Peter, in your actions with your farmers, with the working of the private sector, the primary sector. I just want to, as you said yourself, this is not only about CO2, this is about sustainability in a broader sense. So Jais, to share one good advice to other private sector business leaders that want to be a step ahead in taking actions in the green transition, what would that be in order to use technology and innovation as a driver?
I think you need to set that bold ambition we were talking about. I think as a CEO or as a senior leader in any company, you're the one setting the tone. You're the one that decides what gets done. And you need to buy into this. You need to start living this. You need to set the direction and set out some objectives on what it is we want to achieve here. And then, of course, and I think Peter mentioned that just before, that it's not just CO2, it's the whole agenda, especially in an industry like ours. We are very heavy on jobs, so we have 26,000 people across the company, a lot of, say, jobs that are physically very demanding, but there's a big agenda when we talk about sustainability going forward, so creating good jobs, creating jobs that are also going to be there in the future. So it's not just the CO2 agenda, it's also about jobs. It could also be, when we talk about especially beef, from a meat point of view, we know that the emissions are higher here. Then we need to find other points where we can make improvements, and this is what we're working on.
So but always setting these targets and identifying.
You need to set the tone, you need to set the target, and then you need to be, I think, very precise on the data and start becoming much more data-driven. You need to think in terms of how do you then measure this so you can get things done. Yeah. And we'll be, I think, one of the first meat companies to come out with a complete life cycle analysis here before the summer holidays, which I'm very excited about.
We will follow up on that, guys. Thank you very much for sharing this good advice, the data-driven and setting targets. Yeah. And you, Peter, do you have one short advice for other business leaders who wants to take these important next steps?
Echo what Jais is saying, but then also remember we as a normal business leader and leaders as such are very good at running the business seen from a business point of view. Financials, KPIs, etc. The targets, the ambitions, that's where it starts, but you have to drill it down into KPIs that are being measured in exactly the same way that you measure your financial performance. That's when you get the organization moving. Without that, the sustainability goals will just remain a needle that you put here. You have to turn it into how you run the business otherwise.
That is a perfect finalizing word in this last round of Global Food Talk with you, Peter Tuborg from Arla Foods. Thank you very much for being with us. And you, Jais Valeur from Danish Crown. So pleased to have you with us today. Thank you very much for your good advice.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just round off by saying over here that during the last almost 1 hour, we have all been inspired with actions and that can contribute to the green agenda with innovative solutions, technologies, and collaboration as tools. It has been clear. Actions needed to reach a sustainable food system and the future as described in the letter we got in the beginning from 2050. We really need to take actions, all of us. And it stands especially clear to me after this Global Food Talk that we need to support this green agenda by talking about scalability. When we have good solutions and technology experiences here in Denmark, we must share. Sustainability and CO2 knows no borders. It is also clear to me that it is of utmost importance that we are humble and realize that we cannot rely on one single solution or quick fix. We need to continuously evolve and develop solutions and technologies and move forward with collaboration and partnerships. The journey has just begun, and we all have an important role to play to succeed. So let's remember the personal appeal from His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince Frederik, and his quote from Elvis Presley. We need a little less conversation and a little more action. And I hope you will join us for the next Global Food Talk with the title, Facing Up the Global Food Challenge. Everybody has the right to safe, high-quality food, and that is on June 7th, also here in Food Nation. So thank you very much for joining us today, and stay tuned on Food Nation newsletter and social media to get the latest updates, webinars, and news about the agriculture and food sector. Thank you for being with us today, and have a really nice day. Thank you.